Adam Scott as Jim Halpert, Octavia Spencer as Donna Meagle, Craig T. Nelson as Jay Pritchett, and Macaulay Culkin as Barry Allen. Only one of those near castings is a lie, and I'm gonna leave you to figure that one out. Luckily, the entries in this video are all true, and I guarantee they will rock your world.
His statements of the obvious continue to annoy.
Man, somewhere out there in the Berenstein Bears multiverse is a wildly different sitcom landscape that I can't even believe almost happened here. By now you've seen this video and know all the bizarro feelings it elicits. Seth Rogen as Dwight Schrute. Now that is hard to visualize as a fan of his work and The Office. Let's face it, Rogen's made a name for himself as a producer and writer. He's often acting in his own work, but we know what to expect from him at this point. His movies are never total garbage. I wonder what would have changed if he landed the role of Dwight on The Office. Anyone who knows anything about sitcoms knows they demand a lot of an actor's calendar. You don't get a huge free space to make any movie you want. How much would this role slow down Rogen's progress as a creator in that space?
They're unrelated.
Here's the other part I struggle with. Dwight developed based on Rainn Wilson's performance. I think Rogen could capture the early seasons of the character, but how would that story develop? Surely the writers would have played to the strengths of Seth Rogen as they did with Wilson. Honestly, what would that look like? Rainn Wilson was going on many auditions during the time right before he got the role of Dwight Schrute that inevitably launched his career. One of these casting calls was for the part of Gob Bluth on Arrested Development. Yep. He was nearly the famed illusionist and black sheep Bluth child that Will Arnett made cult famous over time. Instead, Rainn Wilson became a character so ingrained in pop culture that most fans only see him as Dwight Schrute and nothing else. That's how perfectly Wilson played his Office character. You see this guy and instantly think, oh, so that's what Dwight's up to now. In fact, I think we tend to forget that NBC tried a spin-off focused on Dwight because he was carrying the series by the end. I doubt any of that would have happened if he'd taken the role of Gob instead. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Arrested Development, but we all know that Rainn Wilson reached a whole different level of fame by becoming Dwight Schrute. It made his career, and he'll never need another acting job in his life. Okay, those first two are better known near casts, but this one will blow your mind. If you're from the original Friends generations and remember watching the series live, you probably also remember the movie Swingers. For you Gen Z viewers, Swingers was the movie that arguably launched Vince Vaughn's career and helped put Jon Favreau on the map. It turns out that before this charismatic duo took to the silver screen, they auditioned for the parts of Chandler Bing and Joey Tribbiani. Favreau was aiming for Chandler, and Vaughn was trying for Joey. So I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that would be a superb choice. I love the job that Matt LeBlanc and Matthew Perry do, but picture this second option. I don't think Favreau would bring the same know-it-all confidence that Perry brings to Chandler, but he'd offer up similar confidence. Vince Vaughn would have been a great Joey, but his comedic timing would certainly contrast to LeBlanc's style. I'm not saying that either is the best choice, but it's fun to think of this alternate reality version of Friends. Oh, and speaking of Joey Tribbiani, Matt LeBlanc has coasted on that role ever since his spin-off show fell flat. No one from the Friends cast will ever need work, but LeBlanc was given a tempting offer. Turns out the casting crew for Modern Family envisioned him in the role of Phil Dunphy. He turned it down, but the point of this list is speculating on what that might have looked like. For starters, I think that we'd all be talking about how Matt LeBlanc has the golden thumb. Modern Family is a sitcom for an entire generation of young people. I mean, he'd be the star of 2 decades of television. We'd be defining him by whether we prefer Joey or Phil. Anyone who likes Modern Family knows how important Mr. Dunphy became to the show as the years went on. He carries the majority of the dialogue in the early seasons. Imagine Matt LeBlanc carrying the show. The dynasty pop culture writer saw for him at the end of Friends would finally come true. Well, it never came to be, but at least LeBlanc is happy with the choice. Okay, full transparency. I didn't think of John Lithgow as a sitcom star until I finally saw him in Third Rock from the Sun. I see him as Barney's dad in How I Met Your Mother or Winston Churchill in The Crown. It turns out his whole career hinged on one audition and one missed opportunity. Lithgow was Frasier. The Frasier in Cheers. That means he missed out on 2 humongous television series that spanned 20 years of television work. I respect John Lithgow, but I wonder if he'd get the same traction that Kelsey Grammer got in the role. Remember, the original intention was for Frasier to only appear in 3 episodes. He was such a popular character that the show kept him on. Would Lithgow find the same success given that chance? Well, I'm not so sure, but tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Kelsey Grammer doesn't do many sitcoms now that he's famous, so Lithgow likely wouldn't have been the other popular side characters he's played in several sitcoms since Third Rock from the Sun. Here's another 2-for-1 entry for you all to enjoy. This one focuses on the rumors around who all auditioned to play Phoebe in Friends. There are some reports that Ellen DeGeneres was in the running for a long time before declining the role. Full disclosure here, guys, there are doubts about how valid this one is. Still, I wonder how much of the granola quirk of Phoebe would have disappeared if Ellen got the role. I do know that Kathy Griffin auditioned for Phoebe, and that's an even wilder casting choice. Just imagine her, Jon Favreau, and Vince Vaughn all working on the same set. My god, the jokes would be on a whole other level. I'm not sure how appropriate that level would be, but it would be a different tone, that's for sure. I think Phoebe is one of the more underrated stars in Friends. She brings many memorable comedy moments the show thrives off of, and her drama wasn't endless. Trying to picture Ellen or Kathy Griffin in that position is not impossible, but I certainly prefer Lisa Kudrow. So Jennifer Love Hewitt is what I like to call a comet celebrity. She periodically streaks across the sky in a blaze of glory only to disappear just as quickly. Many of her fans see this as a positive since she only takes roles that she sees as a strength. That being said, she made one crucial mistake in her well-planned career. She was offered the role of Robin in How I Met Your Mother, and she turned it down. Hence the reason Kobe Smulders is now the second most famous Robin next to Batman's sidekick. In this reality, we know Jennifer Love Hewitt as the Ghost Whisperer, and I'm being generous in assuming that you recall that show at all. Hewitt might have been a whole different kind of celebrity if she'd said yes to this role. I also like to imagine that Robin Sparkles would be a contrasting pop star angle given Hewitt's well-documented singing career. Now that would be fun to watch. Sign me up. And let me be clear, I'm just trying to say that the songs might even be more catchy and cringe. Frank Reynolds is a treasure to television, and anyone who says otherwise has never seen this clip of him squeezing his body out of a couch. Danny DeVito is a difference maker for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but this was not his first chance at sitcom stardom. He's been in the game a long time, you guys. Turns out, the role of George Costanza in Seinfeld was DeVito's, if he wanted it. I'm quite sure to this day no one knows why he turned down the role. One thing is for sure, Jason Alexander will always be grateful for that fact. If you think I'm exaggerating that, just know he's said so.
This guy stinks.
I just wonder what DeVito would bring to the role. I think everyone knows that he's not Frank Reynolds in real life, but his comedy chops tend to lean on the rougher side. He's not a subtle comedian, but that works great in Always Sunny. George's personality traits are on full display with Jason Alexander in the driver's seat, but Danny DeVito would be a whole other level, and you know it. Finally, an entry where we can thoroughly compare these two actors in the role they auditioned for face to face. There's an episode of The Office where Pam's new boss reminds her a lot of Michael. You know the guy. That's Bob Odenkirk. Yeah, before he was Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad, he took a crack at another incredible series. The best part of this, what could have been, is that this guest role was Odenkirk's version of the character. I have to be honest, I don't hate it. We all know that Michael Scott was initially written to be hated and rooted against. Steve Carell offered so much more to the character that they spent seasons building the character past that. Odenkirk gives us a glimpse of how we might view a more disliked version of Michael Scott. He's got a touch of smugness that Carell erased in most episodes. There's also more confidence in Odenkirk's performance that hints at his Saul Goodman persona forming in the near future.
So that's fun.
What an extraordinary moment in television. Okay, the last entry was one that we could fully picture, but this one is so wild I can barely conceive it as a possibility. Turns out, Jim Parsons auditioned for Barney Stinson in the early days of his career. I mean, try to put Sheldon Cooper in a suit and have him make lewd gestures at women for an entire series. It's sort of hard to picture. Then again, Neil Patrick Harris is nothing like Barney Stinson either, and that's what you need to consider. Parsons is a whole different person when he's not playing Sheldon Cooper. There's a level of confidence that he displays that shows that he might be a solid Barney Stinson. The part I have a hard time connecting to Parsons is the showmanship. Neil Patrick Harris is Broadway and Las Vegas rolled up into one character. Matching that level of grandeur is a hard bar to cross, even for someone as talented as Parsons. He'd match the cast, but he wouldn't be the circus master that Barney turned into by the end. You know, I was almost cast for a voice acting role in a certain animated series that everyone loves, and I took this role instead, and that's not true. I was never offered a role, and I begged them to hire me here, but the fact that you believed it for a second means a lot to me. Thanks, guys. Believing is half the battle.